Just a quick one, guys. So my name's Ryan Wardell. I'm the CEO and the founder of StartupSauce. So we're a community for SaaS founders based outside of Silicon Valley. So we do guest speakers like this usually once or twice a month. Noah, thank you again for being the guest speaker this month. We do mastermind calls in groups of founders where we talk through different issues that you're encountering as a founder. So if you run a SaaS business, you're based outside of Silicon Valley and you're doing at least $5,000 a month in revenue, and you want to meet some other founders and swap advice and talk about all the stuff that you maybe wouldn't want to discuss in a public Facebook group, and you want to talk about it with some other founders who are playing at your level, consider joining us. I'll drop a link in the chat now so you can check out our website and have a look. And if it seems like a good fit, we'd love to have you there. So give me 1 second, everyone. That's us. That's StartupSauce. And today we have Noah. So Noah is an account executive at ArcSight. It's an industry-leading CAD drawing platform. He spearheaded the sales process and content strategy there, and he traveled around the US to present the tool to clients and partners. So Noah, I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself and take it from there. But yeah, looking forward to it. Over to you, Noah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Ryan. I really appreciate it. So yeah, as Ryan mentioned, I work for a company called ArcSight. We're a relatively new CAD design application that's available exclusively for iPads, iPhones. Very interesting product. We have people that use it for all different sorts of use cases, from estimators to inspectors to like just hobbyists who happen to just want a CAD tool to maybe design a gallery or floor plan. So really interesting software. I mean, the deal size runs anywhere from 160 a year all the way to like 100,000. So there's really just a whole gamut of experience I've kind of accrued over the last couple of years. And this talk is really kind of oriented towards that, right? Prior to selling software, for about 10 years, I worked for contractors. And I happened to kind of stumble into this job. That's a whole different story. So I had a lot to learn about how to effectively demo these types of tools, especially when it's complicated as a CAD software. So I'm hoping if you're new, to software sales, you're going to find this talk really beneficial. If you have a smaller SaaS business, I think there's a lot to unpack in terms of the methodology and kind of what you can do. So if you have any questions on any of that, reach out to me. My contact information is going to be presented here at the end. So first off, before you actually start your demonstration, there needs to be some prep kind of involved. And some of this is going to sound basic, but I'll tell you it's all invaluable. So we're going to touch on this first. So first off, let's see here. Lighting is going to be essential, right? Which touches on another point here, which is the importance of webcams. So if you are doing a demo here without your camera on, you're definitely doing it wrong. People need to be engaged and have someone to actually talk to. That kind of goes both ways, right? If you're talking to a client, ask them to turn their webcam on. I know there's some discussion about whether or not that's a best practice. I'm a big believer in being able to see the client's face. Opens up a lot of room for discussion. But lighting is really essential to this one point. And to that effect, I would highly recommend purchasing a ring light, all right? A ring light's going to make you appear more alert, more awake. If you don't have one of these and you're doing a demo early in the morning, you might look something like this person on the left, right? I mean, not bad, but big improvement here on the right with that ring light. Now, if I turn mine off, I think you're going to see how important this really is. I'm going to do that real quick. All right. So now you can kind of see I got dark circles under my eyes, a little bit more wrinkles, right? You turn that ring light on, different experience for the client. Being attractive isn't a prerequisite to sales success. That being said, does it hurt? I don't think so, right? So purchase yourself a ring light, very, very important. All right. Next thing is going to be your background. The key thing with the background is you don't want it to be distracting. You don't want to have kids running around. You don't want dogs or pets. You also really don't want there to be a mess. Now, one of the things that can be important to convey, which you can do without needing to mention it, is that you're well-educated. You got your stuff together, right? So in my background, for instance, you can see I got a nice vase. I got some books on a shelf. I got Rodin's The Thinker put on the side to kind of work as a bookend, right? So just kind of subtle things you can do to kind of increase your perceived value to your prospect. So work on that. I see some people in here with not maybe the best backgrounds. We can probably work on the lighting and what's going on there just a little bit. But Ryan, I do like yours. I will say that. I like the stuff you got in the background. Next thing would be a notepad. So I know you're doing a software demo, but still it's important to have just something you can write information down on right there in front of you without having to type, right? It's really embarrassing to forget important points that were brought up during the sales conversation, like somebody's name, their role, kind of what they're hoping to accomplish. So just by jotting those things down on a piece of paper, you're going to have a frame of reference kind of moving forward to better set yourself up for success and just avoid kind of embarrassing recaps, if you will. Next thing that's important is prepping your screen. This is actually really important if you're demoing cloud-based software. So if you're going onto a website or something like that to demo your tool, very important to prep your screen accordingly. So be sure you close out all your tabs. Don't have a bunch of stuff open. This also means muting your phone, maybe muting Slack, for instance, might be another thing you want to do. You just don't want distractions happening during a sales call. So that's what prepping your screen will accomplish. The next thing would be to review notes and calls in your CRM. So this really should go without saying, right? I shouldn't have to say any of this, but reviewing notes, call CRMs, something that needs to be done to really know who you are talking to. And if you're using the right CRM, you might even be able to listen to calls placed to the prospect before the demo was booked. That might give you some important context for the discussion. All right. So we're done with the prep phase, if you will, of how to sell software. Let's move into the actual process itself. Before I get into that, I want you to keep one thing in mind, and that is you need to reduce your time to value when you're demoing your own software. Everything after this point is going to be geared towards keeping the presentation concise. Everybody's time is valuable. But more importantly, if you are selling the same product as your competitors, so this might be you if you're selling a CRM, for instance, if you're selling the same product as your competitors, but you are able to demonstrate value faster, people are going to assume you have the best product. So I'm going to actually touch base on this later because it's just that important. But if you're going to take one thing away from this conversation, please take that. All right. So first off, after you build rapport, which is that should be just a brief introduction, talking about who you are, asking the client to introduce themselves, you're going to step into the discovery phase of the conversation. The point of discovery is to learn about the client's business, but more importantly, kind of find their pain points that are going to drive them to purchase your tool. All right. Now, key note about discovery, it's not going to work the same way regardless of who you're talking to. There's no singular discovery strategy that's going to work for all of your prospects. Specifically, right, and a good example here is inbound versus outbound discovery. If you're talking to an inbound prospect versus an outbound prospect, your discovery process needs to look a lot different because the buyer's journey to your demo has followed a completely different path. And so really what you need to do with inbound leads is align yourself with their pain. They came to you because they already have a problem. They may already know you have a good solution, right? So really all you need to do is align yourself with their existing pain, which you can usually accomplish just by answering 2 or 3 short questions like, such as, hey, how'd you find us? Why are you here? Why is this important to you now? Really basic stuff. Now for outbound leads, before you get into discovery, and this is a mistake I see a lot of reps make, before you get to asking questions, you need to earn the right to discuss their latent pain. You need to earn the right to ask them questions. Otherwise, you're going to come across as interrogating them, right? Or interrogating. So again, 2 different methods here, alignment and outbound. Now with outbound, the best way to earn that right is through the use of some type of discovery prompter. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is a discovery prompter? A discovery prompter is some type of slide deck, some type of monologue, maybe a story. It explains your mission statement, the problem you're looking to solve, and it should be kind of brought up in a way that intrigues your prospect and prompts them to answer your questions in a way that relates to the tool at hand. Right. There's 3 elements to a great discovery prompter, and they're worth reviewing kind of, with each individual one. So first off, you want to have a brief monologue or story that explains the problem your product solves. So The X and X, our name of our company is this. We help companies solve this problem, right? The next bit you want to have, and this is also very important, is a polarizing and binary, nexus statement containing some type of startling insight. This needs to kind of change the way your customer thinks and feels about the problem you solve. And it's a binary statement because you either agree with it or you disagree with it. It kind of segments who you're talking to and into people who agree and disagree. You do want most people to agree with that, obviously, but you do want a certain percentage to kind of just walk away after they hear it. You want to focus your energy on people that are already in alignment with you, right? Now, Gong, I think, has an awesome nexus statement. Their nexus statement is basically that with the amount of software available on the marketplace today, yours simply isn't going to stand out from the competition. It's just a flat statement, right? You might not like hearing that, but to a point, it's true. The next part of their nexus statement is it's more important how you sell your software rather than what your software is. Right? It's more important how you sell it, what the uniqueness of your product, in other words, right? So there's going to be some people that disagree with that statement, right? But on the surface, it does make sense. And if you can agree with that statement, you're more in alignment with Gong's tool, which is designed to kind of help reps sell software. So again, you have that brief monologue, telling people what you're doing, basically, that polarizing nexus statement. The next thing you're going to need to do in this discovery prompter is provide some social proof. Now, what I see a lot of sales guys do with social proof is they simply bring up the largest companies to kind of use their product, and they assume that's going to capture their prospects' interest. Instead, really what you want to do when providing social proof is simply demonstrate that there's a lot of people from the prospect's tribe that are quickly migrating over to using your solution. So what you typically want to do is rattle off a list of 5, 7 names, maybe of companies that are in the same prospect's industry or area even, and then talk about how they're using your software. So before I move on, a quick note about the nexus statement. I think we're talking to a lot of SaaS founders, executives, CEOs, people of that nature. It's kind of your job to create and unpack a nexus statement, for your salespeople. You don't want them kind of doing that. That needs to be kind of your task. If you don't already have one, it's maybe time to get to work on writing something like that down. You can kind of think of it like your keynote address or the introduction of a TED Talk. All right. So let's move on. So once we've kind of engaged the client with that discovery prompter section, if you will, now you need to unpack and find their latent pain. So you're going to do that by asking your discovery questions. Now, if you've been selling software for any length of time, you probably have a short list of discovery questions that you typically ask your prospects. So I don't know how much detail we need to go into here, but the key thing, and this is developed from kind of Sandler, is that you want to ask smart questions that convey your expertise in the field you are selling to. So like there's dumb questions and there's smart questions, and sometimes it's just a matter of how you phrase them. So for instance, like a dumb question when you're talking to a prospect might be like, how do you sell, your widget, right? That might be like a dumb question. Whereas maybe a smarter way of phrasing that could be something like, could you walk me through your sales cycle from beginning to end? Somebody calls you for your service. What does a sales cycle look like? What does your follow-up look like? Things of that nature. That's more of a smarter way of phrasing kind of the same thing. The key thing here is you want to basically have questions that are worth the prospect answering, I guess, that demonstrate to them that you have some type of industry expertise in what they do. And you want to get long answers. So if you can get 30, 60, 90-second long answers from prospects, that's a very, very strong buying signal. And that can be difficult to do if they're not fully engaged, which again goes back to kind of being short and concise with everything. But if you're getting shorter answers, you want to help them elicit kind of longer responses by asking follow-up questions. So I got some examples here on the screen. It can be helpful if you're not very improvisational to follow some type of question framework. So I have an example here from a book I had read called The Sandler Pain Funnel. It's a good example kind of follow-up questions you can kind of ask to, elicit more information from the prospect. And there's different types of question frameworks you can follow. I don't know if any one of them are better than the others, but the important thing here is that they will basically feed you follow-up questions, and that's the most important part of it. Now, remember to keep it short, right? you typically don't have that long to answer questions. And this is something that I see CEOs do quite a bit in my experience, is they spend a lot of time on discovery because they tend to be a little bit more technical. But ideally, you can keep your discovery phase to maybe 4 questions or less. That doesn't include follow-up questions. But I wouldn't recommend spending more than, maybe 9 to 10 minutes on discovery. So it's really important that you are short and concise with what you choose to ask. All right. So ideally, during the discovery phase, you kind of learn what you need to effectively demonstrate your tool. And more importantly, maybe even create a sense of urgency. That sense of urgency can really be fostered if you follow some of those questioning frameworks. So for instance, someone brings up like a pain point that they have with their company while they're pursuing your solution. You help them further elaborate on that by asking those follow-up questions, right? And I'll tell you from experience that if you can actually do a great job during discovery, it's going to save your demo, even if you do a horrible demonstration. People will come back to you, apologize, and say, hey, we want to make this work. It really is amazing what a great discovery call can do. All right, so after you introduce yourself, you've unpacked your discovery statement, you've asked some questions, now it's important to set the agenda for how the demonstration is going to go. So I'll just give you how I do this, and I'm not saying this is the best way, but this is typically what I'll tell clients. Hey, thank you for answering my questions. I know that's not what you came here to do. You wanted to kind of see a software solution. I just wanted to ask you those so I have a good idea kind of where you're at and what features I need to show you. So here's what I'm going to do. We have about 15 minutes left on this call. I'm going to show you the software. I understand that you're probably going to have some questions while I go through that. If we could just maybe defer those to the end of the discussion, and then I can help you answer those because I want to make sure I cover the highlights with you first. But if we need to unpack things in greater detail, which you may require, I can schedule a follow-up meeting with me, maybe a product expert or customer success, and we can go into more detail kind of if you require that. Does that sound good to you, client? Mr. Prospect? They'll say yes or no. And then you obviously want to follow that up by saying, and just do me a favor, if this doesn't seem like a good solution for your business, feel free to just let me know and you can end the call. That's totally fine. If it does seem like a good solution, let's go ahead and discuss some next steps and see about implementing it into your business. Does that sound fair to you? People always say yes. Now, if you're not talking to the primary decision maker at this point in the call, and hopefully you've unpacked that during your discovery phase, right? That they're maybe not the one that's going to be purchasing the software. Make sure you're setting the stage for booking a follow-up meeting with the actual decision maker at this point. Because if you don't do that, you're going to have a much more difficult time getting that follow-up meeting. And then last thing you do before you jump right into the demo is just tell the client, listen, we're going to send you a post-demo summary kind of in an email. If you're talking to like that secondary decision maker, someone who can actually do it, make sure that you make it easy for them to kind of pitch the actual decision maker on that email. So we might cover that a bit more later. All right, so demonstrating your software. Let's get into the meat and bones of this. All right. First off, when you're demonstrating your tool, please start with the result and then maybe show how you got there. You might not even need to show people how you get that end result. So this could be like a dashboard, a report, a timeline, a workflow, right? Something that's really easy to show to the client that just gives them that value proposition right away. Now, when I was demonstrating ArcSight, this is a lesson I really had to learn for myself because I would, and I'll just put my tablet up here, I would just, start from scratch and go over all the different tools that people would need to kind of create a CAD design, right? Whereas I realized it was much more efficient to show them the finished product and then maybe draw a line or something just to complete the drawing. So that is the most valuable thing you're going to probably get from this whole presentation, to be honest with you. So you organize the demo from the result perspective, the perceived benefit of which is going to be maximum and then easier to understand. And then you can unroll your whole pitch after that point. What you don't want to do is run through a list of all your product's features. What you want to do is simply give them a taste of what your software can do. You don't need to explain everything. Just give them a simple taste of your software to intrigue them and create a vision in their head. So highlight the important parts of your software first, rather than ramping up to them slowly. There's a lot of talk in software sales about the aha moment, right? Of when this is going to click and your customer knows you have the best solution. You don't want to coalesce to that. You don't want to have that be the apex of your presentation. You want to lead with that aha bit. So again, we're going to go back to that first slide, reduce your time to value. This is just another way of saying it. And I'm going to say it again. If you are selling the same product as your competition, but you're able to demonstrate the value faster, your prospect's going to believe you have a superior option. Top performers, according to Gong, right, and they've reviewed millions and millions of Zoom software demos, tend to be shorter in their demos. They tend to be punchier. They don't spend more than maybe 5 or 10 minutes on a singular feature. That's because top performers are great at emphasizing and harping on the real value of their product, not how it works. In essence, this is what SaaS sales coaches mean by it's a demo, not a product tour. You've probably heard this a couple times in different, sales material for software sales guys, but really that's what it means, just giving people a short taste. You probably don't have to show people very much, not as much as you might think, to actually have them purchase your software. Now, to that point, let's talk about the dangers of showing too much. What can actually happen if you do that? First off, it dilutes your message. If you think of your software presentation like a small glass of whiskey, right? Delicious, gives you a little nice buzz. You can think of all the features you're showing as just water being poured into that glass. I'm not going to tip you very well if there's a lot of water in my drink. So that's a big danger of showing too many features. The next danger here is that it takes time. It prolongs the sales demonstration. Ideally, if it's possible, and I don't know what everyone here is selling, but if it's possible, you want your first sales call to be maybe half an hour or less, right? You show too much, it starts to take up a lot of time. We have some reps here, awesome people, we're working with them on this, but it might take them an hour, hour and a half to do a demonstration. That's too much. You want to keep everything short and concise. It can also, and maybe this is most importantly, the more you show of your prospect, the more it becomes, the more of your tool you show your prospect, the more it can become confusing for them. So the more screens you show, the more setup appears to be involved, the more likely it is that the customer is going to think to themselves, hey, this doesn't really look like it was built for me. And by the way, they're probably not going to tell you that. That's a lesson I had to learn. What's probably going to happen is they're going to come back at a later point with some type of objection, because they're not 100% sure, they're not 100% sold on this product because you confuse them at some point. So they might object to price, they might object to a contract term, setup, whatever. That's kind of how this manifests itself at a later point in the demo. You're probably not losing people on price, you're probably losing people by showing them too much. All right. So naturally, when you're going through things and you're only showing highlights, it's natural people are going to have some questions. And in fact, if people have questions, that's awesome. Top performers on average get about 30% more questions than people who don't perform, right to their level. So it's a buying signal, in other words. But questions are also dangerous because they can really derail your presentation. So one of the phrases I've learned, over my tenure at ArcSight that's been really valuable to me is simply when someone asks a question on if they can do this or that, simply responding with, yes. Yep, that is absolutely possible, sir. Customer success can show you how to do that once you sign up. You don't need to actually show them how it all works. Just say, yes, that's possible. We'll show you how that works with customer success, or we can even do it in a follow-up meeting. Don't go into exhaustive detail or show folks exactly how their question is answered. Because one thing that might happen is that they might get caught up in that. They might get tunnel vision a little bit. They might also ask follow-up questions that kind of continue to take time away from the highlights that you want to be showing them. So I don't want to say dismiss them, but maybe defer and then answer them, under your own kind of umbrella of control, if you will. We went too far. All right, so on that same note, phrases to avoid saying during your software demo. First off, this is easy, right? Now, as a sales guy, you want to show people or demonstrate that the software is easy, but you really don't want to tell them that, okay? Of course, you should apply it, but it's better shown than said. And you should emphasize that it is easy to use once it is set up correctly, right? That's the important bit. Tell them it's easy to use once it's set up correctly. That's what your customer support services are for. Don't give them the idea that they can just pick it up and get running with it right away. Which kind of goes into our next point here. You don't want to say you can set it up yourself. You don't want to rely on your customer to set up their own software. They may not use it, they may not set it up right. They may not use it in the ideal way. So emphasize again that your customer support team is going to handle, the onboarding process. If you need any help, just let me know. Another phrase to avoid, not a big deal when you're starting off in software sales because you don't have a lot of clients. I'll tell you from experience, though, that people will remember that you told them that they could call you if they had any questions or concerns. So you just want to head that off at the start by emphasizing that, customer support will be their point of contact for any needs. And that's their job anyway. Why would you want to take it away from them? Next thing to avoid saying, and of course, no one's going to say it doesn't do that in a software demo, but some people say, hey, this isn't what our software was built for. That's not really kind of our vision. We'd like to show you this instead. You want to avoid anything that kind of gives the connotation of you dismissing what the client's saying. So really a better way to address that if someone's asking you for something that your software simply doesn't do is just to say, frankly, I'm not a specialist in that feature, right? In any case, it's probably going to be possible to offer you a solution if we really need to by connecting to another piece of software that's designed specifically for that. That way you're giving them kind of a way out, if you will. Like for instance, with ArcSight, we're a CAD drawing tool. We have a lot of people ask us for scheduling. We're drawing these jobs up, Noah. Is there a way to put them on some type of schedule for our installers? Well, frankly, I'm not a specialist in that feature, but we can probably connect you to another piece of software that's designed specifically for that, right? Just sounds a lot better. Next thing to avoid saying is support is free. I mean, support is there, and it should maybe at some point, they have questions or something, they can write an email in to get some help. But support's there to answer questions and difficulties the client may have. They're not there to do the prospect's job for them, which is to use the tool, right? So if you say support is free, you may get caught up with people scheduling endless meetings with them, asking them to do certain things. That's not what customer care is there for. Last thing to avoid saying is there's a free trial. Deals die when you put people in a trial, especially when you have a complicated product. I've seen that from just years of experience here. As much as possible, you want to emphasize, hey, you can start off with maybe a paid account, right, at a smaller level, and then we can kind of implement the solution at a larger scale. But going back to that concept of support, you want people to be supported and cared for throughout their use of the tool. If you're just shoving people into a free trial, it's probably not going to happen. So just avoid even bringing this up if possible. All right. So wrapping up your meeting, if you're talking to the decision maker, please give them an opportunity to buy. Some people just need to be asked for their business. You don't always need to schedule follow-up meetings or send lengthy emails out. If you're talking to the point of contact who's going to make the decision, it doesn't hurt to ask for their business. If you're talking to a lower level decision maker or executive, just do what you can to get in the door with the decision maker. Make it easy, for instance, to pitch them. So one of the things I've started doing is sending up just a longer follow-up email right after the demo, emphasizing the pain points that were brought up during discovery, and then talking just in bullet point format about how ArcSight's going to help solve those. That document is something they can just easily forward onto the decision maker to say, hey, I want you to talk to Noah or this other guy. If you don't have a decision at that point with the decision maker, it's important, if possible, to book a follow-up meeting. So I share my calendar, we pick a time a week or two out, and we say, hey, we'll talk about, potentially moving forward with ArcSight at this point. And again, just to avoid a trial. Saying that again because it's worth mentioning. All right. So if you guys have any questions on this or you want to talk to me at some point, I'm definitely happy to help. I can review demos with you, make suggestions, probably ask to kind of see a couple examples before we actually book something official, just to see if I am in a good spot to actually really help your company. But yeah, if you want to talk, please reach out. I see we have some messages in chat. Right.
Got quite a few questions there, guys. If you have a question for Noah, drop it in the chat now, and then we'll get you to actually. We're not just going to read out the questions, but if you have a question, we'll kind of let you kind of talk it through.